And good evening. Welcome to City Focus. I'm Marty Olsen, your host, and I'm delighted to welcome back to the program, quite frankly, one of my most favorite guests in terms of viewership. These programs run live on SEC TV, but Drew makes sure we get up on YouTube. And beloved Grace Carter, you are a hot commodity because when you're on, the viewership is up. People are interested in what you're doing and what you have to say. And again, you're a candidate for office this fall. You're running for the 39th District State Rep seat, which is currently occupied by Anthony Nolan. And I am hoping you do well because you'd be a marked improvement with our representation of Hartford. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Marty. It's my pleasure to be here. I love hanging out with you and being on this program.
Well, thanks a bunch. We've got 50 minutes, folks, for conversation. We do accept phone calls, so if you have anything that you would like to discuss with us or have any comments or questions or commentary for beloved Carter, please call us up. The number's on the screen at 860-440-3154. And the 39th District in New London encompasses the Districts 1 and 2, which is, for all intents and purposes, the north end of town, running from roughly Plant Street up to the Academy, up to the Quaker Hill line. So that's the district that you're looking to represent. And I'm just, I think, it's a stock question, but, why are you seeking this? You ran for mayor, and you're getting back into the fray for another office right away.
So the question is, why am I running?
Yes, why? What piqued your interest to get back into the, as a candidate?
Well, first of all, the political bug did not bite me. That's not what happened. I feel like this is my call. This is what I'm supposed to be doing this time in my life. I have such a desire for justice and a love for people and for this community. We have a lot of things in our nation that divide us, a lot of things in our state that divide us, a lot of things in our community that divides us. So I feel like because issues divide, we can come together on our values. That's the most important thing. We can come together and sit down and discuss the things that we really value about our community and about each other. So I'm running because I want to be a voice of the people, by the people, for the people.
Well, I think once elected, you'll do all of that and a little bit more.
Thank you.
I've got the utmost confidence in your capacity to serve and serve well and represent the New London community very well. From where I sit, our incumbent seems to just take his points of view from the party leadership. Original thought has not been a strength. And it'd be nice to have somebody who's actively working for us and not just doing what the Democratic leadership is mandating out of Hartford.
Well, I'll tell you, I agree with you, Marty. I do. I think that we have to have more accountability and more transparency between our community and our legislation. I think that I am different. I like my difference. I like this community. Like I said to you before, my family's been in this community for 7 generations. If I may share something with you.
Absolutely.
Well, the reason I think that I'm so adamant about what's going on in our city, our community, there's been a tremendous influx of unhoused people, people with mental illnesses. And I'll just add this, the mental illness I think comes sometimes from just being unhoused. Having to sleep with one eye open and not knowing if you're safe or not. Maybe you had a physical ailment, but then it's escalated into something mental, emotional. I understand the challenges that they face, a lot of them, what they face. Not all people who are unhoused are drug addicts or incarcerated people. Sometimes people fall on hard times. COVID left a lot of people without jobs. Sick people could not go back to work. The jobs were eliminated. People get divorced. things happen, lose their jobs, you know. A lot of things happen. And for my own self, my own personal testimony is that I was homeless with 6 children. And we slept for a while in my car many years ago. And eventually we ended up going into the Covenant shelter. And that was, in itself, it was traumatic. Not that it was a bad place, because the people treated us very well. But I saw the people who came in with less than I had. I had a college degree, and other people maybe did not have that going for them. And I saw them struggle, you know. I know what it's like to not have a roof over your head. And that's one of the inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You can't pursue happiness if you don't have a roof over your head. You don't know where your next meal's coming from.
Especially if you've got children. It's
Absolutely.
difficult enough if as an adult.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my heart goes out to them. I understand their struggles, and I'm just really compelled to speak up on their behalf.
Now, in New London, as we speak, there's been a significant amount of apartment dwellings that have, rather large apartment houses that have been built. And a very, very large one that's been approved for the Fort Trumbull area, 500 units. And then on Howard Street and Bank Street, we've got the Beam and the Docks. Mm-hmm. And I don't get the impression that any of this housing is geared for folks who are trying to get a roof over their head. These are geared for upper income. The rents are very high, as if they are trying to, the markets for the EB professionals.
You're right on with that, Marty. You really are. I find the same thing. What I see is that there's House Bill 5333, which was a part of the 2024 session. They are fighting for more control over the housing situation, and they are initiating language that better suits the word affordable, a broader definition of the word affordable. And that's going to be a good thing. Personally, I see buildings, storefronts in the bottom, empty places up top. On my own street, there's been several houses that were purchased from out-of-state real estate investment companies, and I understand real estate investment. And I love the fact that someone wants to invest in New London. But what I don't care for is that these houses are being sold to these landlords from out of state. And we cannot control, yes, we get money in our hands, you know, they pay us, we get money in our hands, but we no longer have any kind of control as to how much they charge on rent, what kind of housing, you know, they provide. And my thought is, as I shared earlier with someone, is that I believe that there are a lot of dilapidated buildings in New London, houses and buildings that should be renovated. 10% can be on the market. I feel like 10% can go on the market for real estate investment. Out-of-state people, if that's what they want to do. The other 90%, I feel should be renovated, rehabilitated, and for affordable housing for people. And not just...
Well, that's not the goal of the mayor. I mean, Mayor Passero is, what you're seeing loud and clear is the gentrification of New London, which is the high push to bring in high earners and high rents and high real estate. And it doesn't happen overnight, but you're seeing a slow shift and moving lower wage folks out of town.
That's true. That's very true. As far as, you know, moving people out of town, even my own daughter says she is considering moving to another state because of the taxes, property taxes, car taxes, electricity. Just it's being very difficult. It's very difficult to live in the community that you grew up in, and I find that being very unfair. There's no loyalty to our community. London is very unique. It's a wonderful place and has a rich history. And to destroy that for the sake of it's what's happening, it's not what's happening.
Well, and I don't see our current representative, whether it be Mr. Nolan, who you are running against, or Christine Connolly, who's running She runs out of Groton primarily, and then she has the sliver down the south end of New London, the 3rd District. She's a state rep. And then we have Martha Marks, who's a state senator. And none of these folks seem to be doing anything more than taking marching orders from the leadership in Hartford and not really looking and analyzing carefully the needs of our community in the districts that they're representing.
I find it to be very interesting, Marty. If we knew our Constitution a little better, if we would read and see that as a state representative, you are the person that holds the purse strings for your community.
That's right.
And did you know there's a piece in there, in that Constitution, that says if the state representative is not doing their job, they can be recalled? They can actually be recalled by their constituents and replaced. That's not throwing any shade on anyone, but that's just a fact. That's just the truth. This is what our Constitution says. We have to better represent our community and the needs of our community. A lot of times answers are like, why is this happening? We ask people that are supposed to be representing us, why is this happening? And the answer is very pat. It's, oh, Hartford, because Hartford says so. Hartford is there to do what we want them to do, of the people, you know.
That's what they're supposed to be doing.
Yes, exactly. So if you're not standing up to legislation, you know, that's being proposed with a definite no, that's not going to fly in my community, you know, you may get shot down, but at least you're being the voice that you were called to be for the community, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that you broached just a few moments ago, the increase in property taxes for homeowners in New London, and this year we took a huge hit after a reevaluation from the prior year, and it's really had a negative effect on many, many homeowners. And our party, promoted heavily by John Russell, and challenged the city with the budget to try to get them to lower the taxes. And they circulated a petition, and Gina Phillips was involved with that as well, and others. But those two were kind of the leaders of the charge. And they were able to secure enough signatures to present to the local council for consideration to do something. And the council, I thought, was very arrogant in how they handled that with a minuscule cut to the budget of $50,000 to the police budget of all budgets for a position that hadn't been filled for the assistant chief, which translates into about a $5 decrease in one's taxes on their home, which is in the big picture rather insignificant. And that it was aggravating enough that John and Gina again and others circulated a second petition, again with enough certified signatures to require action by the council. And I think the council as a body was grossly misled, if not basically lied to by the mayor and the law director, that, well, they've already taken an action, and therefore they didn't need to do anything, and those of us who signed this petition could go pound sand, go to hell. And quite frankly, when they made the adjustment to the initial budget, they took an ordinance and amended it and made a new one. So we were not taking a second bite at that apple, we were taking the first bite at the second ordinance. So that, to me, was a disgrace by the city government. But the thing is, at some point, it gets to be where, people get tired, they wonder what's going on. If you're going to get attorneys involved, it gets very expensive. And so government wears you down. And In this case, I think that that's what happened, but people still are not happy. And then it gets exacerbated, and I mentioned the apartment building slated for Fort Trumbull with 500 units, and the council just recently approved a 20-year tax abatement for this building. Now, people living here now are getting slammed, and they're going to give the developer a 20-year tax abatement, $6.5 million. Again, it's a slap in the face to me. And I think it's incumbent upon, our elected officials at the state rep level and beyond to stand up and chime in and say, this isn't right.
Well, Marty, you said a mouthful, and I'll tell you, because yes, we were pushing for a referendum,
Yes.
which is our right. Legally, it is our right. According to the charter, we can do this. And to issue another 20-year tax abatement, I mean, what does it take for our municipal leaders to understand that didn't work with Pfizer? And it happens to be in the same general area.
Pfizer's is for 10 years.
Yes, I'm saying, but it was
Not
the same,
20, 10.
Yes.
And after 10 years, what'd they do?
They
left.
Exactly. So, to your point, haven't we learned yet? Haven't we learned yet that that's not what we need here? That's not going to work for us. 500 units? My question is to the municipal government and Mr. Mayor, with all due respect, what happens when these people get another contract in Chicago or someplace else? We're going to be left with one-bedroom apartments that no one with a family can live in, like a ghost town. Again, we have a lot of issues in our community that can divide us. But once we start listening to one another, we can come together on our values. Issues divide, but values unite. Do you want a fractured community, or do you want a united community for the betterment of everyone involved? One person, one body of people should not make a unilateral decision regardless of what all the facts show. The people, it reminds me of France and England. The people are crying out, because they were being squished back in the 17, 1800s. They're being squished because of the monarch and their rules, unilateral rules. But they weren't listened to, so what did the people do? They revolted. Is that what New London needs? Do we need something like that to happen with our city government before we're heard? It's either going to be reformation or revolution, And at this case, at this point in the game, I wouldn't be surprised by either one.
Yeah. But one of the things that I think hurts New London tremendously, and as a state rep, you'd be in a position to help change this, is that New London is maybe the only or one of two or three communities in the entire state that does not have minority party representation. So,
yes,
as we sit here today, New London has 7 members of the Board of Education, and they're all Democrats. They have 7 members of the City Council, and they are all Democrats. A mayor who is Democrat. There is no Republican representation at all. And so the diversity, and the Democrats like to throw that word around, diversity, but the diversity of ideas is null and void.
Exactly. Ideas and solutions.
Correct.
Because, again, I believe that state charter
Yes.
says that we are supposed to have a representation of a minority party. New London
The
calls
charter
themselves-
does not call for that. I have to.
Is that,
and
is that
it
correct?
does not.
Okay.
And that's what they hang their hat on. But
Ah,
the point being is, when you get elected, you can introduce legislation up in Hartford to correct that.
well, I think you're absolutely correct about that charter thing. I think that New London has had a way of finagling that, because other towns have that in place. You have to have, like you mentioned yourself, one of maybe 3 that don't have it. Just for all conscience sake, have diversity on the council so you can hear both sides. You can hear what people are interested in, what their needs are, and they need to be people who represent our city, people who live in our city. And unfortunately, we don't have that across the board on our council. We have people who don't live in our city that serve on our city council. And
Really?
yes.
Okay.
And to me, that's egregious, because you can get in your car and you can go home, where the rest of us have to live in the community.
Well, yep, we're here.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere. At least I'm not.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, but you're absolutely correct. As a state representative, that's one of my main focus.
Yeah.
You know,
Folks, you're watching City Focus, and I'm Marty Olsen, your host, and I'm delighted to have a beloved Grace Carter in as my guest, and she's been in a couple of other times, and she's been running for office. And this year, she is running for a state representative in the 39th District in New London, which encompasses Districts 1 and 2, which in essence is the northern part of the community. And I think she would be a terrific choice to represent us in Hartford and get some clear thinking, and somebody who's not going to just to toe the party line. I think you're an independent thinker, and I think we need a lot more of that up in Hartford.
Well, thank you so much, Marty. You know, I believe that the truth sheds light. The truth is light, right? So when you walk into a dark situation, like what we're living in, and there's a person that opens their mouth and speaks truth, it sheds light. Some people may not like it, but nevertheless, it's the truth. You know, I want people to get a fair deal in our community. People who have invested time and money and sweat and blood and tears
Yes.
to remain in this community and make it home, call it home. So I think it's very important that we have that diverse representation on the council. You know, I think it's important that we have more transparency between the legislative body and the people. You know, even the representation, people going, like state representative, going to Hartford, speaking on behalf of the constituents of the community. You know, it's very important. Otherwise, what are we doing?
I understand. Now, as you've been out campaigning, because you were nominated back this past summer, I believe the nominations were in July or thereabouts.
Yes.
What are you hearing from your constituencies as you're banging on doors and holding events and getting around town and going to different functions? What are people telling you is important to them?
Marty, I tell you, some of the things I can't repeat on TV. You know, I'm too much of a lady to say that, but honestly, people are frustrated. They're discouraged. One particular place that I visited and hung out for hours at was the Gordon Court area off of
William Street.
William Street.
Senior housing.
The senior housing, exactly. I want to call it Hodges Square area.
Yep, just up the hill.
Yeah, and
That's being torn down.
yes. From what as I speak with the people, they tell me last year they were told it was being torn down. They have not heard anything else since. They don't know what their day-to-day life is going to be like. They don't know if they're going to be placed elsewhere or if they're going to be thrown into the system of unhoused people. They're really distraught. They're really, really distraught. They don't know what's going on. I tried to assure them that I would find out, and I've found out some things for them. But why is it that there are people in our community, they don't know if they're going to have a roof over their head the next day based on someone else's decision that they've made, you know? The housing there is horrible. I witnessed mold and just decay and infestation. It's horrible. We were talking earlier about affordable housing, and I just want to add this to it, that the language, the more broader definition of affordable housing, which was proposed in that House bill, it doesn't just apply to deed restricted housing, which doesn't increase in value, and it doesn't only, wants to go further than subsidized housing, which historically has led to inhumane living conditions. So I feel like people that represent people
Yes.
have to see the truth of what it really is, how people are living. And we're human beings. No one should have to live in fear like that if they're going to have a roof over their head. Another housing place I visited was Realty Court and spoke at great length with the people there. They have more information about their being relocated to the Bayonet Street area, the housing in Bayonet Street. But we're not, our agencies are not talking to each other. They're not communicating with the people for them to know exactly what's going on.
Yeah. Well, Realty Court and Gordon Court are both under the umbrella of the Housing Authority.
Exactly. And we do have a new director for the Housing Authority. I would very much like him to take a walk through and speak to the people. Everyone's not going to come out to the community room, knock on the door, look inside, see what they're dealing with. So one person said, "Oh, well, I don't want this torn down. I want it to be fixed up. I enjoy my little piece of grass I have out here. I can sit outside.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in a building on the 10th floor or the 6th floor, or the 11th floor of a building with elevators that break down constantly." Speaking about the high rises we have in New London now.
Yeah, well, 202 Coleman Street, which is across the street from the Housing Authority offices, is
Deplorable.
another one that's under their umbrella.
Exactly, and the conditions are deplorable. They really are. And I might take some flack for that, but it's okay, it's the truth. Same thing with, I know Huntington Towers is not under the Housing Authority, same thing. Infestation and just in need of better management and things being fixed.
But I think that although these complexes that you're outlining are under the auspice of the Housing Authority, which is independent of city government. I mean, the members are appointed by the mayor, but once they're appointed, they've got the charge of overseeing the operations and the management of these facilities. And the three that we've just discussed are also under the aegis of the state of Connecticut. They're not federal units.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, as a state rep,
Exactly.
you're in a position to step in and do something. And this is another case where I think the incumbent is falling on his sword because he's doing nothing.
Well, I'm really glad that you pointed out how this whole system is set up, and I agree, it's actually correct.
And even though the city is not directly involved, these complexes are within the boundaries of the city.
Absolutely.
They are residents of New London. They vote in New London.
They do.
And they needed to be treated with respect as New London residents.
They get courted for their votes and then forgotten at the end.
I mean, you don't see the mayor or the council taking up the banner for these residents either. It's like they're on their own, and it's
Exactly.
it's rather disgraceful.
It is. It really is. The Housing Authority, and like you said, it's independent, more or less, from the city, even though people are appointed there. I would like to see them take more of an interest in the lives of the people. They have an idea of building bigger buildings, 2, 3, 4 stories, 3, 4 stories, whatever, or more. What do the people want? They don't want to live like stacked on top of one another. We have enough property there to keep it the same structure the way it's set up, and people can enjoy their little gardens on the side and whatever, and live as a community. They're very close-knit community there at Gordon Court and Realty Court. A lot of empty places in preparation for being demolished, no doubt. But the people that are there have to contend with the conditions of these places. If it's one thing to appoint somebody to a particular housing development or office, but then you take your hands and your eyes off of it, you have to be willing to inspect what you expect. You put them in position. It's your responsibility to see that they're treating these people correctly. It's your responsibility to see that things are going, they live in humane situations, to just set something up and then walk away from it. Ostriches do that. They lay eggs, they go about their business, But
Well, if you stick your head in the sand, you think that the problems go away, but they're just
don't.
circling around you.
another ostrich characteristic, exactly, But it's time to take accountability for what for our city. It looks like a ghost town most times.
Well, if we have, in downtown, there is absolutely no foot traffic at all.
Exactly.
And the mayor is gambling heavily, as I mentioned earlier, heavily on these high-end apartments. But you're not seeing to date any tangible positive results downtown.
It's good that you said that, because we're so busy talking about what's happening, we're not talking about what's not happening. Some things have been said over the past 4 to 8 years, and it's not coming into fruition. If we're building all these houses, why do we have so many unhoused people?
Well, we have unhoused people, we have empty storefronts.
Exactly. So if New London is what's happening, ask yourself what's not happening here. Why are there so many unhoused people? Why are there so many people with mental issues out there on the streets? Some people are very hungry. I'm very grateful to be able to serve at the New London Breakfast Program. Been there for 15 years.
Are you still doing that?
Yes, I am, and I
Now,
love it.
because that was being run out of the Congregational Church that collapsed.
Exactly. And the very next day, I was at the Salvation Army cooking.
So
They
you're
serve
running it there, is that correct?
Yes, it's running there.
So the breakfast being served downstairs?
Yes, it was being served upstairs in their sanctuary, but
Okay.
we cooked downstairs in the kitchen. And I'm just overjoyed to say, yes, I'm still doing that, and we'll probably
That's
do
terrific.
that forever.
Thank you.
I love doing it. I love talking to the people and loving on them and listening to them and helping them any way I can. So again, there's such an influx of unhoused people, people with mental issues, people who've been formerly incarcerated and then dropped off in New London. I don't see where they're getting the help that they need. I think I've actually walked a man, he was in his 60s, he was at the breakfast program, and he just collapsed on my shoulder crying. He was, like I said, in his 60s. He needed housing. He said, I've done everything they've asked me to do at the homeless hospitality. I've run in circles doing everything, and I still get pushed off. I still don't have a place to live. And he said, I want to go see the mayor. I said, absolutely, you should go. And he said, I'm afraid to go. I don't know what to say. I said, I'll go with you. And I did. Me and a couple other people who work the breakfast program have been there for years, Carmen Wilkinson and Kimberly Kale. Neither one of them live in New London, by the way, but they love New London, and they come and they serve every week at the breakfast program alongside of me. So we went. We took this gentleman to see the mayor. And he was in tears explaining his situation to the mayor. But that shouldn't happen. That should not happen. Promises are made, and a lot of the things that are proposed are ineffective, because we talk about what's being done, building all these houses and so forth, but what about what's not being done?
Well, one thing that's not being done, in my opinion, is that we're not addressing public safety.
That's another issue too. That's a very big issue.
I mean, I think the mayor has taken a very callous attitude toward public safety. As we just noted, that downtown there's no foot traffic. People aren't coming into downtown. They're not investing in downtown, at least in the storefronts. And there's a reason for that. If people aren't going into an environment where they feel it's safe and it's clean, they're not coming, because there's other places they can go. They can go to Niantic or Mystic.
Yes.
I mean, Rod Corners went to, he picked up and went to Niantic,
Exactly.
and is doing well.
And doing very well, actually. Doing very well.
As an example.
Yes.
And so I think, again, the community leadership is playing ostrich. They're acting like, well, if we tuck our head away and ignore it, it won't be there. And then we have other pockets within the community where there is disturbances and violence and crime that is disturbing, and you're not going to get people coming into the community because they have alternative choices. Whether it's, as we had this past Friday evening, where you had fights in the grandstand at the high school football game, serious enough where they had to postpone it and reschedule the game. I mean, who does that? What's going on? Or issues where folks are being accosted downtown for money and this and that and the other thing. Shootings and drugs and things of this nature. It's not the type of environment that's warm and welcoming, contrary to posting banners that New London, it's happening.
Yes.
As you say, what's not happening.
Yes.
And why. And you have to have an honest assessment of what's not happening, and you can't ignore it and just put on a happy face.
Exactly, exactly. That is very grievous to me, because I love New London. I love everything about New London. That's why I'm still here.
Yes. Well, we have choices when we decide to stay.
Exactly. And I'm not staying for naught. I'm staying for change. Something has to change. Everything that you mentioned, the violence, the drugs, I mean, our school systems, that's part of it, the gang. Granted, there are people coming in from other cities, gang violence coming into our city, things that are going on in school, the kids, the disrespect, the no accountability for behavior, it's not okay. People say that it's old-fashioned to require kids to respect their elders or what have you, but years ago, look at us. We didn't turn out too bad. You misbehaved, the teacher would call your mother, and your mother would tan your hide when you got home.
That's right.
But right now, there aren't any jobs. I'm not just picking on the kids, not at all, but the job situation for parents, the hopelessness that bring, drug use, into the city. This is not just something that it's an isolated thing. It's all connected. We have to get to the root of it and start building from the ground up. Start lifting up rocks and looking under them and saying, okay, listen, we've hid this for a while. Let's bring this out to the open, to the fresh air. Let's take care of this problem. Any kind of wound, this city is wounded. Any kind of wound that you cover up and you don't clean up first, you just cover it up, it's going to fester. It's going to stink, and eventually it's going to kill you.
Yeah.
So I think we need to examine everything that we say we're supposed to be doing. Let's find out what we're not doing. Why aren't things changing? And I really don't want to hear, it takes time. Well, you've had time. You've had time, and it's gotten continually worse.
At some point, you have to say enough's enough.
Absolutely. And honestly, Marty, this is how I feel. If you're elected into a position, you've accepted the position, and at some point you can't do the job, then step down. Graciously step down. Finish your term and step down. Because it's like my mom used to say through Bill Cosby, it reflects on your parents. So the city reflects, what's going on in the city reflects on its leadership. It really does. And at some point they have to take responsibility for what is not happening in our city.
One thing that disturbs me greatly is it's primarily, but not exclusively in the warmer months, but the mountain bikes and the motorcycling and the hot rodding and that goes on in New London and other places as well. But the impotence of government has been distressing and disturbing, where they just throw up their hands and say, well, we can't do anything. Well, that's an unacceptable response. Now, our local government will point the finger and say, it's Hartford.
Yes.
Well, let's take them at their word that it is Hartford. Where are our representatives in Hartford? What are they doing to address the problem? Nothing. That's where, when you get elected, we'll be counting on you to be working on devising solutions to a very serious problem, not only in our community, but throughout the state and many of the urban areas where you've got these, juveniles that are creating, havoc and discontent. And it's not a positive, pleasant environment. And then you've got an extension of this that's going on. It's been reported where on Coleman Street, when the high school lets out, I mean, some of these fast food places are now closing up. They're not allowing people to come into the restaurant because the kids come in and they terrorize things. You can't have that.
That's true. That's very true. There's accountability issues. Turning your head, looking the other direction is not going to fix the problem. As far as the dirt bikes and those other things that you mentioned going on, again, you can't turn your head, turn your eyes, avert your eyes.
Yeah.
You have to look at what's really going on. And if Hartford is the one sending down, dictating what happens in your community, then you should be opening your mouth and saying, that's not going to fly in my community. I think people, our community, come together and say, this is a real issue. We make enough noise, Hartford will hear. Hartford is Hartford because we make it Hartford. We sent them there. They are to govern, to govern us by our consent.
Right? That's the way
And
it's supposed to be.
I'm ready to withdraw my consent for a lot of things in Hartford. So I agree with you. It's not just one isolated incident.
Oh, hardly.
It's all interwoven together. So let's go to the root. There's an old saying I heard years ago about there was a person, and you probably heard this, standing at the bottom of a waterfall, and these babies kept being thrown over the waterfall, and the person was working feverishly to pull the babies out of the water, saving their lives. So after a while, he realized that, let me go up here and see who's throwing the babies in the water in the first place, instead of being reactionary.
Right.
So that's how I feel. If Hartford is throwing babies in the water, let's go to Hartford and find out what's going on there, what's really going on, and put a stop to it.
Yeah. One thing too that's a big issue at many different levels, but the electric rates in Connecticut have skyrocketed out of control.
Yeah.
And again, this is something that gets more involved at the state level, where the office that you're seeking, we need to have somebody who's going to be proactive and looking out for the ratepayers who are getting screwed. And you
so
talk
glad you brought
about
it up.
and again, our local contingent is sitting on their hands; they're doing nothing, and it's unacceptable.
I have so much to say about that. But let me just start here, okay?
Yes.
Of course, it's at an all-time high. Our electric bills. I think we have, as a community, need more transparency, and we need between the government agencies and the ratepayers. You know what I mean? So we need to set a reasonable cap on the power purchase contracts. They have to purchase power in order to get it to the people. So there has to be a reasonable cap set on how much they're paying for it and how much they're charging for it. Now, there's another, if it hasn't already taken place, I think it's coming, another rate hike.
Yes.
People are hurting. Why should we have to choose between heat and eat? That's not okay.
Or your meds.
Oh, or your meds. Absolutely. Absolutely. So where are those people, and I'm going to say the politicians, who posture with a bunch of pronouns? I am on this committee, we do this, me, me, me. Why is it not trickling down to the people who sent you there? What are you doing that's making a change, that's making an impact, that's making our lives better on this end of it? I don't want to hear about all the committees you sit on. I want to hear that you made a difference, and that the people are going to see the difference in their light bills. It's not a good situation, and again, like I said before, it's all intertwined. It's not an isolated incident, isolated situation, issue. We need to get together and find out exactly what are we doing here. What are we doing in Southeastern Connecticut? This is where everything began. New England. This is where America grew out of. The continental United States grew out of. So if this sector, if you will, this section of the country collapses, what's going to happen with the rest of the country? Because this is where everything started. Believe it or not, this is a gateway to what goes on in the rest of America. And if we allow the people and the powers that be to turn a deaf ear and a blind eye and have their own hands in the pot and doing whatever they, feel like they want to do without regard to the constituents, then we're in for a long haul, a bit of trouble here.
Yeah.
We don't get off our duffs, open our mouths, and speak up. And that goes for any party. I don't care if you're red party, blue party, green party. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. One thing, specifically to the electric rates, the folks that are most adversely affected are those who are lower wage or fixed income, and they have no way to recoup these additional expenses.
Absolutely.
And we talked earlier about the crush of homelessness, where folks are going to be forced out of their homes because they can't afford these bills. That's a rather it's a black mark on government here in the state and our city to allow this to happen.
It's very grim, yes, absolutely. I agree with you on that. I shudder to think, like we have some nonprofits around the city, nonprofit organizations.
Yeah.
A lot of, not just the high-profile one, but some smaller ones that are really working like on a shoestring budget to help people, with their heating, with their getting IDs, the identification, people who've been formerly incarcerated, people who are homeless and had their belongings stolen, they have no ID or the birth certificate. I know small community agencies and individuals who are fighting desperately to make a difference in this community. I mean, can imagine what this would be like if those agencies had to close because they're not being funded properly, not being funded properly, and they have to close their doors. Do you know what this community would look like with all the people, the unhoused, the convicts, people who have been incarcerated, people with mental issues? What it would look like in this community if they were all out on the street with nobody to help them? I think our community, our local legislative community, municipal community, they're playing with fire. And they don't, fire and gasoline, and they don't understand what's going to happen, possibly, if they don't shift their focus off of the Attaboy Amen Club. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, one thing that, New London, Norwich, and other urban areas throughout the state take up an unconscionable amount of the burden of homelessness and other social ills. Mm-hmm. And the argument being that, well, the services are there, but as long as the issue is not more evenly distributed,
exactly,
our neighboring communities, and they fight like the devil to keep it the way it is.
That's right. They do. You're absolutely correct. I've recently met a few people at the forum. I went to a forum, legislators and nonprofits, and recently in Norwich, and the people were just hurting. They're trying to listen to what the forum, the legislative people, and if I name names, you know who I'm talking about, were on this panel, and the kind of language they were using, Hartford language, lingo. These people were sitting there with eyes glazed over because they had no understanding of the terminologies. Yeah. They weren't getting results. They were getting filibuster talk. Okay. They weren't getting results. And my heart goes out to them. And I want to see a change, and I'm going to make a change. If I get elected, when I get elected, there's going to be some changes, because my interest is for the people. And if the people understand that they have someone on their side fighting for them, I think they will rally behind me.
Well, I have confidence in your capacity to serve and to do a good job. And I'm hoping that your message is resonating with those who will be out for the election in a month. It's a month away.
It is. It is. Please come out and vote.
Come out and vote for beloved Grace Carter, the candidate of my choice for the 39th district anyway. Although I vote in a different district, but if I could, I would vote for you. I think you're a quality woman that brings a good, honest feel for the district and the people that you want to serve for, and that they would benefit greatly from your expertise and what you bring to the table.
Thank you.
We're kind of getting down to the last nitty-gritty here. Is there anything that you'd like to share in the last moment or two before we call it a night?
I just want to say that New London is a fabulous, wonderful place to live. It really and truly is, and I think it's getting a bad representation of what it's like to live here, really live in New London. And I'm looking forward to people like myself and others who have a heart for New London, my neighbors and whoever, to step up to the plate and to go out and vote, not according to what they're against, but what they're for. You know, what they're for. Again, issues divide and values unite.
There you go. Well, with that, I'm going to say thank you. It's
My
been a
pleasure.
delight to have you back on the program.
Always a pleasure.
And hopefully next time we have you on, you'll be an incumbent state rep, and we can discuss things from a different position.
Yes, I'd love it.
All righty. Folks, you've been watching City Focus, and I want to thank you. Next week, I'm having some medical procedure taken care of, so I will not be on the air. We'll be running a rerun. And so please tune in, and in 2 weeks I'll have Tony D'Angelo will be coming in, 3 weeks, excuse me, the 23rd. And we'll discuss a lot of the state issues again. So I want to thank you, and with that we'll say good night.
Good night.